Hi guys, it's Katarina, and today I'm going to be going over my tips for studying a language when you're super busy. So I'm basically going to be going over some efficient tips that I use for when I'm in college or I'm working to learn Russian on the side. It helps in total, but I'm just going to be giving some resources and some tips for how to focus and manage your time with learning a language when you're not able to completely study the language and put your full attention to that. So hopefully some of these tips help you out, and I hope you enjoy. So I've kind of referenced this in a lot of my other videos, but it's do something that you really enjoy in your free time in your target language. So you will most likely make time for the things that you enjoy, like video games, reading, watching videos. But if you're super scrunched for time and you still want to consume the media that you really enjoy, just try combining the target language into that hobby that you like. So obviously I play video games in Russian. I watch YouTube videos in Russian, all this stuff. So try immersing yourself in these things. It'll be a little bit confusing at first and you'll be like, what? But like I've said in other videos, it comes very slowly, but eventually you'll be like, oh, like this makes sense. I can understand a lot better. And you learn also a wide variety of vocabulary from doing a range of things, either from video games, from certain sci-fi video games like Portal. Like I've been watching that in Russian, which is super interesting because I never would have known these words beforehand, but now I do know. And then also reading certain books on certain topics, it slowly kind of adjusts your memory to learning it in your target language instead. And it's also fun, it's just fun. And the reason for doing your hobbies in your target language is because you're making memory hooks of doing a certain task or doing a certain thing, and you're slowly remembering it to that point in time, and you're remembering it to the word as well. So you're creating these memory hooks and spurts of memory. So when you do happen to play it in English, you might remember it in your target language. So a lot of the times when I'm playing through the intro of The Last of Us, I'm not listening to it in English anymore. I'm thinking about it in Russian because I've seen it so many times in Russian, if that makes sense. So it's incredibly helpful, and it starts to overlap and you start to just learn a lot well and comprehend what you're listening to. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Another cool thing that I like to do is I keep a little quick fact book around me. I have one on several different topics just because, whatever. I have one on vocabulary. It has just mainly words that I don't know at the time, and I Google Translate. Okay, what does this mean? And then I have like my little bubbles. I've said it in my other videos, but it's extremely helpful if I'm just sitting around, I have nothing else to do. I just go through the book and I'm like, okay, I know this one because I was here last time looking at the same word. So it's very good in terms of repetition. I think that everyone should do something like that. And then another kind of quick fact book you can do is something on grammar, something more complicated, but kind of put down the most important things, or like a memory hook. Memory hooks are incredibly important for needing to memorize information more quicker than usual, but they're useful nonetheless. So hooking something to Russian grammar to something you're seeing when you're doing something else, it's incredibly helpful. Another thing I'd like to recommend is putting up post-its on certain areas of the house and things like that. So like wall or window or desk. I did this when I was first learning Russian and it was actually incredibly helpful. That's how I started to build my basics. But let's say you're further along and you're like, I know what wall is. You could just really just write notes of words that you don't know just in plain sight, maybe on your calendar or just a post-it note on like a mirror or anything like that. You just start to look at it more and you start to actually think about learning the language and like the word itself. And it is very good for retaining certain words and things like that. So I definitely recommend that. An additional thing I like to do is, this is primarily for if you're in school, but I think you could also do it if you're in work as well. But it's putting your Google Docs and things like that into your target language as well, similar to social media. But I would also recommend, if you have tasks for a day, write down those tasks and what you have to do in your target language. I'm just now starting to do this because it's incredibly time consuming if I have to translate anything, but I eventually do learn the words for these things and it's helpful. And then when you do finally have the time to sit down and study the language, if you have a break or something like that, I would definitely recommend organizing your space in very productive means, meaning that you won't get distracted, you won't be doing something else or focusing on not your target language pretty much. Like I put my phone away or something like that, or I just try to immerse myself as much as possible. I try to ignore all the distractions, although it's very difficult. But I would definitely recommend finding methods that work for you to fully immerse yourself into learning the language completely and whole. Like grammar, it takes a lot of thinking and things like that. I would definitely recommend sitting down with a cup of coffee and just trying to rip off the band-aid, and maybe not rush, but try to do as much as you can, because rushing, it defeats the whole purpose. You're not going to retain the information, but try to find what works best for you to retain what you're learning right now, because in the long run, it will help you out, because you don't have that much time to learn the language in the first place. So being spacious or being gracious with your time and what you do learn is very important. Don't learn something that you already know. If it's a refresher, then okay, but try to be quick about it. Try to get out of your comfort zone and learn something that you don't already know, because after that, you'll at least have a little bit of a hook of what you learned, but you can go from there and build upon it and not just learn the same things over and over again, because you're doing yourself a disservice by doing that. So yeah. And then one last thing is setting your social media into your target language. This is kind of a no-brainer. I think a lot of people actually do end up doing this, but I would definitely recommend, because a lot of the time that we're just killing time in between work or school is on social media, and it's very addicting to get into the doom scroll. So I definitely recommend putting it in your target language, similar to the hobbies thing. Is you're already going to be consuming this media, might as well put it in the language that you're learning, and you'll be curious. I mean, of course, there might be a translate button that will help you out, but you could also Google Translate words that you don't understand and things like that. Maybe if you're bold enough, you could put your phone into the language, but I would definitely recommend doing something that you already do and do it in your target language, because it's a very motivating factor. And you also get a lot of comments like, what language is your phone in? What is this? It's very interesting. I'm like, Russian, obviously. But yeah, it's very fun. So I hope you found this video helpful. These are just some of the things I'm doing day to day as a full-time college student going into political science, which is horrible. Don't recommend it. But I definitely recommend some of these things. Leave a comment down below if what works for you. I don't know.